if you want to make it as an entrepreneur, if you want to really get your product, if you want to do God's work, you better learn to love to hustle. You better learn to love the psychology of it, the playfulness of it, the give and take of it. You got to, if it's not fun for you, you might be self-employed, you might be an entrepreneur, but you're still going to hate your job, because if you don't hustle, good luck, adios. Nobody's going to pay attention to you. Nobody's going to notice. So I love the hustle. To me, there's more psychology in the hustle than there is in the psychology that I teach people about life. And that's why I enjoy doing it. And I've never had a business course in my life, and I've never had a marketing course. But I tell you what, once you learn to hustle, it almost doesn't matter, because you'll find ways that work, ways to get your message across. So I don't care if you're like trying to sell a message, product, digital, physical, you gotta love the hustle.
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nikki Ballou. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou. And boy, do we have an amazing guest lined up for you today. Today's guest is one of the world's leading thought leaders in thinking about, talking about, and solving issues pertaining to men in the modern era. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Dr. Robert Glover. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Nikki, we can just stop right there. I mean, you just made my day. Where else do we need to go from there?
I don't know if you watch the UFC, Robert, but the fellow who does the announcing for the UFC fights is a man named Bruce Buffer. And I just think he's the best in the business. He just introduces those fighters, and I just get pumped up listening to him. And when I heard him do that, I said, I got to be the Bruce Buffer on podcast introduction. So that's what I'm going for.
There you go. And I'm told that he's even like trademarked some of those phrases, like, are you ready to rumble? You can't copy that. He's got it trademarked. I mean, that's because that's him, right? So you need to trademark your introductions, because, if you're the best, trademark it. Come up with that catchphrase, and then boom, put the TM right after it.
I'm going to do it. Okay, thank you. So, Robert, the Thought Leader Revolution is a podcast that's aimed at entrepreneurs, and in particular, entrepreneurs that use the 6 inches between their ears to make a difference out there in the world. Okay. They're all interested in being of service. They're people with the highest ethics and morals. They want to make the world a better place. And they don't listen to the show because of me. I'm here every week. They listen to the show because of you. They want to learn from you. They want to imbibe what it is that you have to offer them. But before they can fully open themselves to you, they got to get to know you. They got to hear your backstory. So tell it to us. How'd you get to be the great Robert Glover?
Oh, my goodness. Where do I even start with that one? All right, here's just quick overview. Backstory, I had 2 degrees in religion. I was a minister for 8 years. I'm not religious anymore. I got a PhD in marriage and family therapy. I don't do marriage and family therapy anymore. I wrote a book for men that came out about 25 years ago. I wasn't even setting out to write a book. I just started writing some stuff for the men in my men's groups. It took me about 5-6 years to write the book, about 3 years to get it published, because lots of publishing companies said, Robert, we love your book, but our marketing department says men don't buy self-help books. Well, 25 years later, that book still brings in 6-figure royalty checks every year and growing every year. So apparently men do buy self-help books. We men, we want to be good men. right? We want to make a difference. We want to challenge ourselves. We want to grow. We want to make a difference in the world. So really getting No More Mr. Nice Guy published really was kind of the big transition in my life. And I wanted to live in Mexico. I came down here about 25 years ago, and I was in Seattle. Sunshine. I had to get out of the rain of Seattle. So I've lived down here about 14 years now, and I can live anywhere in the world. So I was an entrepreneur before I'd ever heard of the word entrepreneur. I haven't gotten a paycheck since 1988. That's the last time I had to call anybody besides myself boss, El Jefe. And I was a digital nomad before the term digital nomad. I was already, before I moved to Mexico 15 years ago, already doing a lot of my work online. That let me, close down my private practice up in the Seattle area and just take a computer, and anywhere I had internet, I could do my work. So I'm both of those, an early adopter entrepreneur, an early adopter digital nomad. And I just, for example, got back from a camp up in Northern California called Camp Abundant. And they bill it a leadership conference / music festival. And so, I was with, a bunch of mostly young, but not all, entrepreneurs, and digital nomads, just people that are wanting to make a difference in the world. Yannick Silver was there. Some other pretty big names were there. And just, man, it was a blast. So I love that's my life. I get to talk to people like you. I get to go away to these encampments and talk about relationships. And I got to talk to the men about empowering themselves and living with purpose and passion. And so how's that? Is that enough about me? Is that to get us off to a good start?
That gets us off to an excellent start. Thank you. So Robert, let's talk a bit about the concept of thought leadership, and let's get into your thought leadership per se. So one of my early teachers said that the difference between an expert and a thought leader is an expert is someone who knows something, but they're invisible. Nobody really knows who the heck they are. While a thought leader is someone who's known for what they know, and they're professionally famous. So they're really well-known and well understood to be an authority in their space. So experts are a dime a dozen, thought leaders are rare and valuable. Your status as a thought leader was greatly aided by the fact that you wrote a book that seemed to go viral, as it were. A book that caught the attention of men because men were in pain. They didn't know exactly why they were in pain. They didn't know how to identify their pain, let alone how to get out of it. And you came up with a comprehensive description of their pain and a solution to getting out of their pain. Can you talk a little bit about that for me and for my listener?
Yeah. People say to me, I hear this quite frequently. They say, Robert, you're so lucky. You get to do the work you love. You're making a difference in the world. You live in beautiful Puerto Vallarta. You've got an amazing wife who treats you like gold, blah, 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 blah. And I always look at them and I go, no luck involved. And the truth is, of course there is. But as a great wise man once said, funny, the harder I work, the luckier I get. I got a PhD at 29. That took some work. It took some focus. It took me 6 to 7 years to write a book that I didn't plan on writing. It just words were coming out of me, and people kept saying, Robert, you should write a book. I uprooted, my entire business and moved to Mexico because I wanted to do that. No, that's not luck. That takes a lot of work and time and focus. But here's what really, I think, if you ask me what's put me in a position to be where I am and have the influence I have, is that, people always talk about, well, I got to find my purpose. I got to find my direction. Robert, how did you find your purpose? And I say, I actually never even asked myself that. I never even asked, what's my purpose? What I've always just done is two things, really. One is if there's something I don't understand, something especially I'm struggling with in myself or with the people I work with, I want to know more about it. So I do a deep dive. I go looking for answers. If I see a systemic issue that seems to have no ready explanation, I want to understand it. I want a theory build around it. And I also want to find solutions, options. And so I do that. The second thing that I do is I maximize my sweet spots. If I'm good at something, you mentioned I came on, with your men's program a couple months ago and did a lot of Q&A with your guys. And you said how impressed they were. That's a sweet spot for me. I know if I have that kind of forum, just, that live Q&A, that's where I'm on my best, thinking on my feet, just giving those good pointed to the point answers. So I've followed those two things. I spend as much time in my sweet spot as possible and try to minimize areas that aren't my sweet spot. And I keep diving into looking for answers, often answers for me. What am I struggling with? What don't I understand? Why am I in this repetitive behavior around something? And No More Mr. Nice Guy was definitely that. My second wife told me, she says, you need help. Everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, but you're not. You lie to me. You embarrass me in public. You're passive aggressive. You need help. I'm going to leave you if you don't go get help. Well, I thought, you're the one who's never happy, and I try to make you happy. Okay, I'll go get help. Luckily, I landed in good places. I landed in a 12-step group that was all men. And I got into it with a good therapist. And I got into another men's group. And I just really started doing a deep dive. And then men were coming to me for therapy because I was a marriage and family therapist. They were saying the same things I was saying. Robert, I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I treat my wife better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I give her everything she wants. It's never enough. She's never happy. She never wants to have sex anymore. And I thought, I can finish their sentences for them. So I put together a weekly men's group and then another one. And I just started writing for them. And I just kept diving deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's funny, once you put your focus on something, and for me, especially once I start writing about it or speaking about it, answers begin to come clearer. They begin to manifest. You begin to see patterns that begin to make sense. And then I test my theory of those patterns. And if I get kind of I get that look in people's eyes, on the look on their face, like, yeah, that nailed it. That hit home. Or if I get that bewildered look, I go, okay, maybe this needs a little bit more refinement, or maybe I need to present it differently. So for me, I just love diving deep into stuff that I'm struggling with, or I see other people struggling with, until I find something that gives us a paradigm shift, that gives us a different way to look at something, a different way to feel about it, a different way to act on it. And kind of like Einstein said, if you can't explain something in terms your grandmother understands, you don't get it. And I think that's a strength I have. I can present fairly complex idea, systems theory, fusion, differentiation, but I can present them in ways that people understand, and more importantly, people can take action on. Because if we can't take action on it, well, what good does the knowledge do us?
I want to unpack what you just said, because I think it's brilliant. If someone's a thought leader here and they're looking for ways to refine their own thought leadership, you said something very brilliant. You said that when you are struggling with an issue, you dive deep into it. You find out everything you can about it, and you start to write and speak about it. There's something called Glasser choice theory. You're probably familiar with it, Robert. And Glasser choice
I'm not
theory,
educated. I love getting educated.
All right, so cool. So Glasser choice theory goes something like this, that if you really want to learn something, the best way to learn it is to go and teach it to others. If you're looking to learn something, reading about it only. So if I just read No More Mr. Nice Guy, which I have, by the way, I gave your book to my 18-year-old son and told him he should read it, right? So
I love it. I love it.
And he's into reading books like this. So he's actually keen. I think he started to read it. Then that's not enough. I'll get 10% of what I'm meant to get by just reading it. Now, if I listen to it on an audiobook, I'll get 20%. If I do both, I'll get 30%, right? But if I really want to understand it, what I need to do is I need to not just read your book, I need to get my men's group together and say, okay, I'm going to teach you men all the major precepts of No More Mr. Nice Guy. Every week for the next 12 weeks, I'm going to bring one major piece of content from the book. And the way that I'm going to need to do that is I'm going to need to read the book. I'm probably going to need to sit down, take some detailed notes. Then I'm going to start to need to go out there and actually apply it in my own life.
Yeah. Make it your own. Yeah.
Right. And then I'm going to be able to sit down and go, okay, I think I might be able to teach this without screwing it up too badly. You know what I mean? So that whole process, Glasser choice theory, posits is the key to really learning something. You retain 95% of what you teach others. You retain 10% of what you read. And I love to read, Robert. I read like a fiend, man. Look at this is a real background behind me.
Yeah.
These are books.
not one of those fake library backgrounds. You know, that's
No,
I love that.
Pulling it out.
Because, you know, I was listening to a podcast a month or so ago where they were interviewing Joe Dispenza. And he said in their workshops, what they do is every concept they teach, they then take a moment, have each person turn to the person next to them and teach them that concept. And then the other person does it back. So they don't just give a concept. Everybody writes it in their notebook, goes home thinking, I'm gonna study this when I get home, but nobody ever looks at their notebook, right? I do that. I go to workshops, write everything down, never look at it. But they have everybody turn to the person next to them and give them like 2 minutes to teach them the concept that they just presented from the stage, whoever the teacher was. And he said they found, kind of like you were saying, as you were sharing, people, they retain it better once they've taught it. And I started doing that in my small groups as well on my calls for my membership program. When I present a concept and then we put them in breakout rooms with discussion questions, I used to have them just discuss it. Now I have them teach it. Teach this concept to the other, you got 2 minutes, teach it to the other two people in the room. And then they're going to teach it back to you. And I promise you, they come out of that room with a deeper understanding because all three people have taught, and you've listened to two people teach it, and you've taught it yourself. That's going to really reinforce that, put it deep in both our emotional brain and our reasoning brain. It's really powerful. So I love the way you present that.
Thank you. So so Glasser choice theory posits that, and it appears that you have implemented that in what you want to learn. And the second thing that I really like about what you said that I'd like to unpack is that when you started to become a so-called, expert or thought leader in the arena of men's issues, the reason was you were personally struggling with those issues. A lot of people out there think, okay, if you're going to be a thought leader, you need to have it all figured out. It's got to be perfectly figured out, wrapped up and tied with a pretty pink bow on top of it. Then you're a thought leader. No, this fellow that I learned from the whole concept of thought leader, the fellow that taught me about the concept of thought leadership said that what truly makes you a thought leader in an area is that you've struggled with the issues in that area and struggled mightily. And the fact that you have not got it all figured out is exactly what makes you the right person to teach people that. And he said the reason is because you are relatable. Your message is relatable because human beings would prefer to learn from somebody that has struggled than from somebody who's perfect, because in their mind, they're going to go, I can never learn from that guy. He's too perfect. He's too well put together.
He's got it together.
I can learn from this guy. He's like me. He's screwed up. He's messed up. I can relate to him. What are your thoughts?
Let me give you some examples. I agree 100%. So that's my thought. I agree. Let me give you some examples. One is that years ago, I really loved the book, The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. He's a psychiatrist. And just that book is the all-time best-selling self-help book. It's been out 30, 40 years. And I remember I went to hear him speak. This has got to be 35 years ago at least. I treated myself to a birthday present. to go hear him speak. And I remember, he was drinking coffee the whole time he was talking. It was about a group, maybe 1,000 people. On breaks, he'd go out and smoke. Now, one of the main sections of The Road Less Traveled is on discipline. And so after lunch, people could write questions on note cards. And he said, well, okay, I'll start with this question first. This one I always get. Dr. Peck, you wrote about discipline, blah, blah, blah. But, you drink coffee like a fish. You smoke, like a chimney. And he goes, I'm not there yet. That was one of the most liberating things I ever heard, because I had great respect for this man, and he wasn't there yet. See, that liberated me. I thought, here's a man I respect who's got clay feet. He's not perfect. And I later learned this guy had issues with alcohol. He had issues with philandering. He did one interview near the end of his life where the guy's interviewing him and says, Dr. Peck, you've acknowledged, you've written a book about you as a philanderer. And then he goes, what happened? How did you stop? Did you get more consciousness? And he goes, no, my libido ran out. And I'm thinking, that's a real human being. He struggled. He was not perfect. And like you say, I'd rather learn from somebody who's bumbled their way through something rather than somebody who just naturally came by it. I wrote a blog article a few years ago, and it was entitled, Why Math Majors Make the Worst Math Teachers. Now, I sucked at math in junior high and high school, mainly because I didn't pay attention. I wasn't interested. And you miss one concept, you're toast. But here's the deal. Most math teachers were math majors, i.e. math came easily to them. They understood it, every concept. They probably just, I get that. They were, they're raising their hand, no problem, going to the front of the board. Not me. It didn't come easily. But I tell you what, when I got to college and had to take a math course, I decided I am going to master this. Not by listening to my teacher, which was a very good idea to not listen to him. But I'm going to sit and study the book, the math book. And I will not turn a page until I completely understand the concept. And I did a deep dive into it where I had to struggle with it. I had to work at it. And I remember, there'd be a person next to me in class and they'd raise their hand, ask the question, and the teacher would start I go, listen, ignore him. I'll explain it to you later. I got it. I understood it. And in that entire semester, I only missed 2 questions on all my exams, a total of 2, because I did the deep dive. And one of the questions I disputed that I got it wrong, and he actually gave me credit for it. Same thing learning the salsa. It took me a long time to learn the salsa. It did not come easy, which means I would be a better salsa teacher because I understand what it means to struggle with this. Now, about 15 years ago, like I said, I have a PhD in marriage and family therapy. After my second divorce, I learned to date, and I started teaching guys to date because I got pretty good at it. And then I kind of went through a dry spell, and I would joke, I'm a marriage and family therapist who's been divorced twice and a dating coach that doesn't have a girlfriend. And people still line up to pay me money. Right? Because the truth was, I was still speaking what was true. I was still teaching people, hey, this is where you're likely to bumble. This is where you're going to stumble and fall. This is where, because I know, because I've done that. I've stumbled and fallen. And, sometimes I was on a pretty well-known podcast just recently, and somebody wrote in the comments, I tend not to read comments, but a friend of mine said, Robert, you should read the comments. And I read one of them, said, why would I take relationship advice from a guy who's been married 4 times? And I thought, well, okay, it's only 3. But I thought, okay, look at the bell curve of my influence. All right, when did I have the most teachable knowledge? When I first got my PhD at 29 in my first marriage, or after my first marriage ended, after I had 20 years of experience as a therapist, after I'd struggled through a second marriage, after I learned how to date and attract women and get laid easily, or after I married the 3rd time. When did my expertise fall off the map? I'm thinking at every point, it kept growing. It kept expanding. It didn't go downhill just because I got married for the 3rd time. My knowledge level went up. And I tell you what, if I go to a mechanic, I want to know that, he's had his car break down and he knows how to fix it. If I go to a doctor, I want to know they've struggled with health issues and they learned how to fix them, right? I don't want to go to a doctor who's never been sick. I don't want to go to a mechanic who's never had his car break down. So that is where I think the true thought leaders come from, not because they were, quote, the math major that everything came easy, because they suck at teaching it, because they can't teach it to somebody to whom it doesn't come easy. So whether I'm teaching salsa, relationship issues, dating issues, those are all things I struggled with, but I did a deep dive until I figured them out. And I think that makes me and other people like me far better teachers.
I think it does. You know, I'm a big sportsman, and one of the sports I enjoy following is basketball. Both my kids love the sport as well, and that's one of the reasons I'm following it more now. And I look at who are the best players and who are the best coaches in basketball. And the funny thing is, the best players hardly ever make the best coaches. So, as an example, Michael Jordan is recognized as one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Personally, I think Wilt Chamberlain's the greatest basketball player of all time. I'm not one of those who thinks Michael is, but
we could even debate which one of them got laid the most too, because I know Wilt Chamberlain was known for that. But I'm guessing Michael Jordan might be up there with Wilt the Stilt.
He did all right. He did all right. But listen, that's a quibble on who's a better basketball player. But Michael Jordan's up there, top 5 basketball player of all time, to be sure.
No doubt.
He tried his hand at coaching. He sucked at it. He was brutal at it. And who's his coach? A fellow named Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was, at best, a journeyman basketball player. He played for the New York Knicks in the early 70s. He did okay, but he was not a star by any means. But he was a smart man. He was a thinker. And because he struggled with the game of basketball, he became really good at teaching players how to become good at the game of basketball. And he won 11 championships. Nobody else.
He was an innovator. What was it? Box defense? Is that what he developed? The
triangle offense. He took
triangle offense. All right.
He took it from another coach, but he took it to another level. And you look at other people who are coaches in professional sports. I've hardly heard of a single spectacular player being a great, spectacular coach too. So it just makes sense. Now, let's move to the next step in the game of understanding thought leadership. So you struggled with an issue. You started to write about it and speak about it. And as a result of the struggles that you had, you've been able to help hundreds of thousands, if not millions of men, stop being nice guys and be real men. And the interesting thing is that what you struggled with, ironically enough, many other men have struggled with and continue to struggle with. And I'd like for you to chat a bit about that, because I think a lot of people that are struggling with something and are entrepreneurs, or they want to become entrepreneurs, don't understand that your mess, right, is someone else's mess as well. And you having the ability to engage with that mess and guide others can be a lucrative business. Could you expand on that for a moment for folks?
And I agree with that 100%, mainly because that's been my experience, right? I talk to a lot of young entrepreneurs. We kind of live in a world now where it's easy enough to make a leap from like having the day job, working for the man, being the feudal slave, basically, and to go out and launch your own company. Write your own book. It's easy enough to get a book published on Amazon. It's easy enough to build your own click funnel. And start selling a product, a digital product, or a workshop or a seminar. It's easy enough to start marketing yourself on social media. I mean, easier than it's ever been in human history. When I started my first private practice, basically you put an ad in the Yellow Pages. I mean, nobody's even heard of Yellow Pages nowadays. So it's changed dramatically. So a lot of, especially young men, but men that are just tired of kind of working for the man, what will come to me and say, Robert, how do I launch my own business? How do I become an entrepreneur, work for myself? And I always ask them, what do you struggle with? What's not working in your life? Well, I got this thing around finances. And you know what I usually tell people? Wherever you struggle, become a master at what you struggle at. If it's you want to learn to play music, well, I go master it. If you want to, guys say, well, I'm really anxious about approaching women, master it. I really, have this thing, but okay, master it. If you take the thing you struggle with the most and just do such a deep dive. Now, that doesn't mean just, for me, it wasn't like reading a lot about it, because when I started looking at what would be called codependency in men, nobody had written about that before. Now, there were books on codependency, but usually they're directed at women or partners of addicts. That's where the word came from. Nobody had written about it for men. And so there was a few things I could read. I could read some, John Bradshaw, Healing the Shame That Binds You. I could read some general books on codependency, but I had to kind of be a pioneer of charting new territory and keep asking myself, how does this apply uniquely to me as a man? And how's that? And I was, I guess, lucky in that, once you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Once I understood that nice guy thing in me, I started easily seeing it in other men. And once I was able to explain it to people, they go, oh, yeah, my dad's that way, my brother's that way, or my ex is that way. People began to start understanding it. So I would tell somebody, if you want to sell a product that people need, even if only 5 people need it, 500 people need it, 5,000 people need it, create the product you need. Write the book you need to read. And I promise you, if you bring your A game and you become a master at that subject, masterful enough that it shifts your life, odds are it will shift somebody else's life. And if you market it well, they'll pay money for that. And so I'm a big fan. Whatever you struggle with, make that your product and make that your audience, make that your avatar. These people need what I need. So I'm going to find solutions that work for me and sell it to them.
Robert, that's absolutely brilliant. And I think anybody who is listening to this podcast should really take a moment, stop, rewind, and write that down. Because if you truly want to, A, solve your own problem, and B, get rich, really, because you're in business. I love that there's so many people today who want to do business because they want to make a difference in the world. And I'm that man. I want to make a difference in the world. I want more people to be happy as a result of working with me. I want more people to get away from self-doubt, imposter syndrome, because that's been an issue that I've struggled with.
Sure.
But let's just get serious, man. I'm in business to get rich. And anybody who pretends that they're in business for other reasons, primarily, honestly, are you just saying that to look good? Because I think we all go into business at one level because we want to succeed. We want to make money. We want our family to be proud of us. We want to be the kind of person who can make a difference for other people with the financial windfall that has come our way as a result of the great work that we've done. So I say this proudly. I want to get rich. I'm in business to make money. There's no conflict between wanting to get rich and wanting to help people, in my opinion. In fact, the more people I help, the richer I should get. That's the way that I see it.
It should work that way. Yeah.
Right?
When I launched my first business, my first private practice, 1988, and I subleased some office space from another therapist, and I was working at another job part-time. I was installing Murphy beds, and I was wanting to build my private practice. I already had my doctorate in marriage and family therapy. So I launched my practice, and I decided after about a year of kind of trying to do both, making minimum wage, installing Murphy beds, and then I was talking to my boss, the owner of the company. He said, "Robert, you just got to go and dive in 100%. You need to write a book." He kept telling me that. "You need to write a book." So starting January 1st, I don't know, might have been about 1990, I'm going all in. And I made a decision to be the most visible therapist in my entire community. Again, this is pretty much pre-internet, any kind of click funnels and online marketing and all that stuff, pre-Facebook. And so I soon realized I could be the best therapist in my entire community And if nobody knew I existed, I'd starve to death. So I realized I had to market me. I had to promote me. I couldn't just rest on my laurels of going, I'm a good therapist. I had to be a marketer. And so I had to learn to hustle. The second thing I realized, closely related to it, is that I could be doing God's work, however you might define that. I could be doing the most important, purposeful action on the planet. And if I wasn't making enough to feed myself and my family, I could not keep doing it. So I had to embrace both myself as a marketer and myself as a moneymaker. Right? Money was not an evil or bad thing, even though I grew up in that fundamental Christianity that pretty much preaches against both self-marketing and making money. I had to confront some really, really old self-limiting beliefs, and I still do to this day. Those emotional belief systems, they're still wired into my nervous system. And to be proud of making money, to be proud that I bought this house here in Mexico and I paid it off in 3 years. I'm proud of that. $250,000 house. I bought it, paid it off in 3 years. Last, 5 years since I got a financial advisor, put $250,000 in my 401k. I can pay my credit cards every month, pay them off. Every car I bought for the last 5-6 years, I paid cash. I'm proud of that. Not in an egoic, look at me kind of way. But it says that I must be doing something right. I must be checking the right boxes because I do believe I'm making a difference in the world. I am making people's lives better, and I'm making a good living doing that. Now, I think that's that speaks for itself. If you're making a difference in the world and having integrity, I under-promise and over-deliver. I love it when a person comes to my workshop and after the first day they go, oh, I've already got my money's worth. Oh, this already exceeded my expectations. That's how I walk the planet. That's how I run my businesses. I am always going to underpromise, overdeliver, and people just go, this is amazing. I've never gotten this kind of customer service before. That, I believe, is how you both make a difference in the world and take good care of yourself and your family, which those are both high callings.
They are supremely high callings. I wholeheartedly agree. There's a lot of people who come into the coaching / consulting / thought leadership space who, frankly, are living in la la land. They think that if they make some posts and they get out there and run some ads, that's all they need to do. They'll make money. It's hilarious to me. And the idea of selling, sales to sell is a 4-letter word to them, right?
Yeah, and I get it.
The truth of the matter is that's why they're not succeeding. They don't go after business they should be going after because they don't want to be seen as pushy or salesy or reeking of commission breath. And because of that, somebody else, some charlatan marketer, somebody with no scruples or morals, but high sales and marketing skills is going to go after that client, get them, not deliver for them. And you're going to be hurt because you're not going to make the money you should have made. The client's going to be hurt because they don't actually get their problem solved. And even the charlatan gets hurt because what goes around comes around. The sum total of business in the world goes down. And for me, when I really got this, I started to realize sales is actually an act of service. It's not selling, it's serving. You don't want to be sold, Robert. I don't want to be sold. Who wants to be sold?
Right.
But I love being served by a good person. I love it. I love giving my money to good people who are trying to serve me and help me. It just makes me happy. And if you look at sales as an act of love, as an act of service, then you're going to be more excited to go out there and sell more. What are your thoughts?
I was just, before I got on this call today, my wife and I made a trip to Home Depot and to pick up, a bunch of tiles for the bathroom that we're remodeling. And, usually, I'm happy with the service in Home Depot, but, it was a little sketchy. And then there was a bunch of these bags of basically the mortar that you put in between the tile. We needed 8 bags, and they're dusty and dirty. And this woman comes over that worked there, and my wife says, will you load those in our cart? She basically said, load them yourself. All right, that didn't sit well. I'm thinking, what do you get paid to do? And so I get nasty, dirty, digging around, finding bags that don't already have holes in them, put them in my cart. I get wash my hands. And, that didn't settle well with either my wife or I. Okay, contrast that. We then go up, there's a Starbucks just up the road, so we make a loop up through Starbucks. And I don't drink a lot of coffee these days because I like it with heavy cream, and I'm allergic to dairy. But every now and then, if I'm near a Starbucks, all right, it'll be a treat. So we go in and I order very specifically what I want. Often they mess it up. This gal put in the wrong kind of cream. I like heavy cream, and my 4 shots, pulled over ice, Americano. And the girl was as sweet as she could be, added a little bit more to it, but put the wrong thing in. And all this is in Spanish. And I can speak Spanish well enough to get it right, but I kind of put my wife on it because I thought maybe she could communicate better. She just remade the drink with a smile on her face, pulled it exactly the way I like it. Let me kind of tell her how much of the heavy cream to pour in. And it was as sweet as she can be. Guess where I'm going to go back? Am I going to be in a hurry to go back to Home Depot? Not with the experience I had. Of course, I'll end up, again, sooner or later at Home Depot. Will I go back to that Starbucks? Yeah, because, again, it perpetuated a good sense of I was treated well. Both are sales/service, right? The salesperson in Home Depot didn't do us any service. And, it didn't sit well. So I think if you have a quality product, you treat people well, you sell to them like you'd like to be sold, I agree with you. It's an act of love. And back to what I tell people when they say they want to be an entrepreneur, I said, it doesn't matter how good a product you have. It doesn't matter, what matters most. If you're going to make it, you've got to learn to love the hustle. Now, most of us think hustle is a bad thing. I love going to New York City, walking down Fifth Avenue, Madison, 7th Avenue, all the people out on the street hustling, right? The fake Louis Vuitton purses, or some tour or something, but they're having they're singing to you, and they're impressing you, and they're laughing, and they're telling you jokes. And down here's hola senor, hola honeymooners, hola amigos. They look like they're enjoying their job, right? And I promise you, if you want to make it as an entrepreneur, if you want to really get your product, if you want to do God's work, you better learn to love the hustle. You better learn to love the psychology of it, the playfulness of it, the give and take of it. You got to. If it's not fun for you, you might be self-employed, you might be an entrepreneur, but you're still gonna hate your job, because if you don't hustle, good luck, adios. Nobody's going to pay attention to you. Nobody's going to notice. So I love the hustle. To me, there's more psychology in the hustle than there is in the psychology that I teach people about life. And that's why I enjoy doing it. And I've never had a business course in my life, and I've never had a marketing course. But I tell you what, once you learn to hustle, it almost doesn't matter, because you'll find ways that work, ways to get your message across. So I don't care if you're like trying to sell a message, product, digital, physical, you got to love the hustle.
Robert, that's brilliant. I'm almost wondering if I should make that the title of the episode rather than what I was going to originally use as the title of the episode, because that's pretty.
Love the hustle, baby.
Love the hustle, baby. So the truth of the matter is that if you're in business, you need to treat it like a business. If you're not selling, if you're not getting clients, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. There's nothing wrong with hobbies, but if you really want a business, you better embrace the hustle, you better embrace sales, you better embrace marketing. And you said this so brilliantly earlier on, I wrote it down. I embraced myself as a marketer and as a moneymaker. And I thought, everybody needs to hear this. Everybody needs to understand this.
Most of your listeners are probably familiar with Stephen Pressfield. He's
I love
a
Steve
writer.
Pressfield. He's great.
Yeah, historical fiction writer by trade. He wrote the Legend of Bagger Vance, and he wrote a book about basically another version of the 300. And I can't remember the name of it right now, but a good fiction book, historical fiction.
Yeah.
But he really got famous for basically writing a book on resistance and how to overcome resistance called The War of Art, and probably a lot of your listeners are familiar with it. In there, he talks about a concept. Then he wrote another book and used that as a title about going pro. And he says, we usually think of the amateur. The amateur plays the game, tennis, basketball, whatever, purely for the love of it. And, they don't do it to make a living. They're not trying to make money. But he actually contradicts that. He says, actually, the amateur doesn't love the game enough. They don't love it enough to bring their all to it and, bring it. But he said the going pro means you elevate your love for whatever it is you're doing and you're bringing to the world. Your marketing, your structure. You got there you go. There you got Turning Pro right there, Warrior Ethos, War of Art. Yeah, you got a little bit of Stephen Pressfield there. So I like that.
I look at it every day and I read and reread these books every year. These are brilliant books.
And he wrote in the War of Art, he felt shame. He said, "I'm a historical fiction writer. I'm a screenplay writer. Who am I to write basically a self-help book, a self-improvement book?" He actually almost didn't write, that series of books that you're looking at because his thoughts tried to talk him out of it. Well, who are you to write that kind of book? And I'm going to venture a guess. He's made shitload more money off War of Art, going pro than even made off the movie, the book Legend of Bagger Vance. He's been highly successful, but his voices tried to talk him out of doing it. He said, well, that's not you. That's not your wheelhouse. That's not what you're known for. But he followed through and did it anyway. I love that.
I do too. He's brilliant. I took a workshop he did in Franklin, Tennessee in September 2019. I got to meet him, got to shake his hand. He's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant man. And The War of Art is an important book for everybody to read because The War of Art will show you exactly what's stopping you from living life as your best self. He says it's a book for artists, but his definition of an artist is pretty expansive. He thinks entrepreneurs are a form of artists. I happen to agree.
I believe me, I included myself in everything. I got two guitars sitting here that I don't play. I've never made the decision to master them. I don't paint. I don't take pictures, but everything he said in that book, I as a creative, I took it to heart. And good stuff. Highly recommend it.
So I'm Persian, and we're known for being poets, right?
Well, Persians, you just the smartest, heritage of people ever lived the planet, right?
God bless your heart for saying that. So this is a little book of poems that I wrote when I met my beloved. That's an old picture of her and I that a friend of mine took back in the day. And it goes, it's How I Won Her Heart, love poems inspired by Teresa. And I wrote a love poem a day for 30 days, and I'd read it for her.
Oh, my goodness.
And by day 30, I had her. Because at the beginning of it, she said, look, you're a nice guy and all that. I said, I'm not a nice guy. I told her, I'm not.
Don't call me that. Don't call me a nice guy. Yeah.
A nice guy. I told her I'm not a nice guy. She said, I don't know. She said, this is lovely and all, but I don't know if I don't know if you should pour much into me because I don't know what I'm gonna. I don't know what if I'm available to you is kind of how she put it. There was a relationship she was getting out of, and she wasn't 100% sure. And I looked her in the eye and I said, I'm going to win your heart. And I'm going to do it in under 6 weeks. And you're going to try to resist me, but you're not going to be able to. And as your resistance weakens, there's going to be a point in which you're going to say, why am I resisting this dude?
Yeah.
And she said in her mind at the time, she said, who is this fucking asshole? Right?
Who is this guy?
At the time, right? Like, she got mad, but she was sweet on the face of it.
She kept reading your poems. She said, listen, baby, I come from a heritage of Rumi. You're carrying, on that heritage.
That's it, man. I went crazy, bro. I went crazy. And 30 poems, they're in here. And then when I got them all written up, I had them printed. I took the picture and I gave it to her. And brother,
you gotta love a romantic.
You got to, but it's also there was, without even having known about your principles, I was being coached by a man at the time who basically said to me, was going through my own divorce. It was not a great time in my life, and he said to me, "You need to work on you. Can't worry about your ex-wife or this new girl you see. You need to work on you." So I did, and after a while I said, I think I want this girl, and I asked him, I said, can you help me get her? And he said, I can. And I said to him that she said, that she's not going to be not necessarily interested in me right now and whatnot. He said, yeah, women say that. And he also said to me, women fall in love with a man over his behavior. So I'm going to coach you on how to behave in a way that she can't resist. And I said, well, I'm writing her this love poem a day, and I'm sending it to her and I'm reading it to her. He said, that's a good start. Keep doing that. And after about a week and a half of doing that, I could feel her resistance start to crumble.
Yeah.
And I just realized that was the moment in my head that I went, any man can get any woman. I mean, provided she's available and not in a relationship and all that stuff, but any man can get any woman if he's determined enough to do it, and he treats her and behaves with her in a way that has her fall in love with who he is. So he can't be a wuss, he can't be a nice guy, and he also can't be a complete jerk. There's a happy medium to which womanhood responds. And
what's funny is that act of writing 30 poems in 30 days, putting it into a book, printing it, that was hustle. That was hustle. You hustled, right? And she responded to your hustle because your form of sales, as you said, was an act of love. It was an act of service. You opened her heart, which is always an act of service when the masculine opens the feminine heart. And you did it by hustling. You didn't do it by being passive. You didn't do it by hoping, by wishing, by waiting, by praying, by, playing it half-assed. You brought your A game and you hustled, and it paid off. I mean, it doesn't, it's funny, we're talking about being an entrepreneur and selling product, and then we're talking about love poems, and it's still hustle. It's still hustle. Why else would you write a love poem unless you're hustling somebody, right?
100%. And, one of my coaches, I ought to introduce him to you one day. He used to be Tony Robbins' director of coaching and training. He coined this term called the apathy zone. And he said, when you're looking to sell to someone, the only way they're going to actually buy from you is if they're either angry and hungry for change, or they're excited and joyous about a beautiful future. They won't buy if they're in what he calls the apathy zone. So they're not too upset about anything, or they're not too excited about anything. It's like, it'd be nice if it were better, but whatever. If they're, damn it, man, I'm 100 pounds overweight, this is it, forget it, no more, they're going to buy. And if they're, oh my God, I'm going to be the fittest, leanest, most amazing man ever, they're going to buy. But if they're over here, they're not going to buy. How do you get people from here to here and here to here? You hustle. You hustle.
And it's a gift. It's a gift to help them recognize, hey, I could level up. I can live a better life. I can be a better version of myself. And whatever that looks like, whether it's teaching them how to sleep better, teaching them how to eat better, teaching them how to manage their money better, how to sell their product better, how to make love better, we're making the world a better place if we can get them out of that apathy zone. Now, we can't get everybody out, and it's not our job to get them out, but let's give it a good shot. Because, even with No More Mr. Nice Guy, if somebody buys a print version of my book, I don't even make $2. It's less than $2. And, that contract's, it's old. It's 27 years old. I make more on audio, make more on Kindle versions, but the print version, less than $2. So, why would I work hard to try to get someone to, buy a book for $2? But what if I change their life? What if that makes the world a better place? And, there's often then they come buy a class from me or they come do a workshop with me. But I don't even think, well, this is just a loss leader to get them to spend more money. It's like if that book changes their life and they pay, $19 for it or whatever, and then they write me an email and said, Robert, this book changed my life. I've read every self-help book out there, but your book was the one that spoke to me and gave me the direction. You know what? That's worth it. That's worth it. I don't care if I make $2 or don't make $2. I just changed the world, and that is going to come back. That is going to pay dividends. I know it. It does throughout my life. And, again, when people say, well, you're lucky, you get lucky through hard work. You get lucky through hard work. You don't have to make shit happen, but you better put yourself in a position to let it happen. And that means you make a difference in the world. You put something in the world that the world needs.
Yeah, well said. I think when someone buys your book, it's probably the beginning of their engagement with you, not the end of it, right? So if someone's bought your book and they read it and it changes their life, that's a good thing. But if they buy your book, they read it, it changes their life, and they want more, and they come and do your workshop, they come into a mastermind that you lead, and they maybe decide they want to hire you to do a speech for them, then this is all to the good. The book is still making you, as you say, 6 figures in royalties a year. Plus, every year you have an opportunity to get your message out and create new streams of revenue. Honestly, in my opinion, Robert, I'm in the business of helping thought leaders, right, who have real expertise. Somebody with your level of credentials, honestly, it would be a straightforward thing to turn what you created with No More Mr. Nice Guy into a mid 7 to 8 figure a year business, because you have so many people who know, like, and trust you. The hardest thing to help a thought leader get enough people to know, like, and trust them that they're going to want to do repeat business with them. You've already got hundreds of thousands. All we would have to do for someone like you, if you decided you ever wanted to do this, is say, okay, let's find 10,000 super fans of Robert Glover, and let's start to seriously engage with them, market to them, and give messages to them. A lot of those folks will be interested in attending your workshops, but if you ever did a No More Mr. Nice Guy retreat in Mexico and you charge $5,000 or $10,000 a head, I bet you could get anywhere from 200 to 2,000 people to attend it. You could do something like that once a year. If you ever decided to do a No More Mr. Nice Guy high-level mastermind, this has got to be for guys who have, read your book, done your course, are at a certain place in life. Bet you could probably get 30 to 50 guys wanting to give you $20,000 to $100,000 a year to be a part of something like that. And I don't know if you want those things at this stage in your life. Maybe that's not what's important to you. But for me, as somebody who works with thought leaders, I get excited because I see what's possible when someone's already built a platform. The hardest thing to do, you've done, which is to build your platform. Yeah. The rest of it is actually relatively straightforward.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're 100% right, because I do have that rapport in the platform. It's funny when after writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, the publisher that published the print version said, we want the right of first refusal for, the next book. So it's actually probably about 15 years later, my agent sent them off a book proposal for another book that I'd started writing. And they wrote back, and it's funny. They'd already published my book. We're already making money on it. And their marketing department, again, says, how big is his platform? Send us information about his platform. I'm going, really? I got to jump through that hoop? You can't already see that I'm out here hustling a book? In addition to you, this week, I have 11 interviews scheduled between now and Friday. Today's Monday, right? Now, I don't always have 11 every week, but I like to say yes when people say, Robert, will you come on my show? And maybe I won't always be able to do it, but when I can, I will. So again, I like doing what I'm doing. But about 4 years ago, I was talking with my tech assistant, and I've created hundreds of thousands of hours, thousands of hours of content, written, audio, video, from my courses, from Q&As, from webinars, and it was all just sitting in Dropbox, basically. And I said, I don't want to die and everything I've created end up in Dropbox. And nobody knows it's there. And a guy came to Puerto Vallarta to do a workshop with me. He was in, he worked with people in home mortgages. And he had a program teaching people how to be home mortgage. And he said, Robert, you need to build a membership program. My wife has a sourdough bread membership program, and she made $750,000 in the last 2 years. I go, hustling sourdough bread, but it can be done. Yeah. So I started building about 3 years ago a men's membership program. We launched it a year ago, July 2023. So we're coming up on our first anniversary. And, we've tried a lot of things, experimenting with different stuff. And one piece that we're honing down on and really coming down closer is that we're going to sell a very basic product. We're going to take what we have been selling for a year and just put a very basic product out there for $15 a month. Anybody can come sign up and get their dose of me, but there's a guy, I think his name is Chris Kelly, wrote about a concept a few years ago on a blog called Thousand True Fans. When I came across that, I thought that is probably one of the deepest truths. He said, it doesn't matter if you're a musician, photographer, got a program, you get 1,000 true fans. They're going to buy everything you put out. They're going to come to all your shows. They're going to be your evangelist. And so what really we're now honing down on for the higher end product, and we'll probably even do a higher end at some point, like I said, that mastermind that, for the people that want to be in a very small group, get a lot of time with me. But what we're really focusing on for 1,000 people, instead of us trying to get 10,000 people into our gold product, we're going to limit it to 1,000. And if we hit 1,000, we don't let anybody in until somebody leaves. But they can come into the silver package, pay their $15 a month. The gold package, they get more intensity. They get over 50 calls a month with us. They get it. But, we first started out, well, let's shoot for, 10,000 people. Let's go world, let's get, be the biggest program in the world. But I realized that would mean we'd have to be in startup mode forever. We'd have to keep expanding our technology. And I'm 68. I committed. I'm in this for 20 more years. I'm going to bring my A game for 20 years, maybe longer. When I get to be 88, I'll reevaluate. But I don't want to be in startup mode for 20 more years. So by honing this down to that 1,000 true fans and letting them be the evangelists, letting them, and you know what? You don't even have to charge that 1,000 true fans all that much to easily make six figures a year. Do the math. It's pretty simple.
A month.
Yeah.
You can make
$100
$6
a month.
If you're charging $100 a month, that's $100,000 a month easily. Yeah, listen.
So I buy into your model. It's a model that works.
It totally works. Like I said to you, if you'd like to have a chat about it offline, I'd be happy to. But
let's do it. I'm always looking for
your brand.
I'm always looking for people that know more than me.
Your brand is a $10 million a year brand, handled properly. It's.
I just wrote that down. Okay, I wrote that down because the human mind will resist what's out of the comfort zone. So I wrote it down. My brand, no more Mr. Nice Guy, $10 million a year brand.
And I would just say to you, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Don't be a nice guy about the value of your brand, Robert.
There you go. I love getting preached to.
Yeah, it's super true. I read Kevin Kelly's article back in 2014, and it had such an indelible impact on me that I started to read it once a day for about 3 months. And I'd take notes and I'd start to teach it to people. I had a business partner at that time, and he was a big fan of Kevin Kelly's work. But you don't have 1,000 fans. You have millions of fans.
Yeah.
You have millions of fans. And there is so much that can do for you. And I also would say this to you. We are coming to a point in time in the culture where there's a massive pushback against all this anti-man, anti-masculine, woke-ass crap that's out there. There is a website called Public Square. They've gone public, and they have over 700,000 businesses that are explicitly non-woke and patriotic American. So there's companies that are willing to spend money on topics. I say this to you, one of the things that Robert Glover could do is create a men's empowerment program for certain corporations. It wouldn't be for the biggest corporations because they're still too caught up in the woke nonsense, but that'll change at one point. It can be a program for some mid-sized corporations and smaller corporations. That is where there's a lot of money to be made. And 3, 4, 5 years when this woke nonsense is gone, I'm thinking if there's some guys who are high-level people in a Fortune 500 company who've done your course, done your program, done your $15 program or part of your 1,000, they're going to go, hey, Robert, do you think you could come and do this for our company? The young men in our company are all too nice. They're wimps. We can't have our people be wimps, right? And you're going to go, The answer is going to be yes. Put together a program per head, somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000 a head, and you're going to do 100 people minimum. You can do as many as 1,000. Boom. That becomes a phenomenal thing inside the world. And you already...
I love getting hustled on your podcast, man. I love it. We'll talk some more.
We will.
You love the hustle. I like it. I like that.
I'm a hustler. But
it's an act of love. It's an act of service.
It truly is. What I'm going to say is that you've already got a lot of thought leadership things figured out. You built a beautiful brand. You built a wonderful platform. You are interested in serving people. You hustle all the time, and you're ready to step to the next level. So that's great. And I really thank you for coming here and sharing your wisdom on how to build thought leadership with my listener, because I think everyone here, you should go buy No More Mr. Nice Guy and check out, Robert's courses and programs and be one of his 1,000 people and all that. But if you really, really, really enjoyed this episode, what you should do is you should share it with a dozen people that are in the thought leadership game, because they're going to benefit from this. It's going to make their life better. Robert, we end each episode by asking you, as our guest expert, what are your top 3 expert action steps? These are your 3 best pieces of advice for my listener to take their life, their business, their relationship to the next level. What say you?
All right. Get a meditation coach. Get a fitness coach. Get a sleep coach.
Oh, that's so good. That is so good.
When I decided I wanted to learn to meditate, I hired a coach. We meditated 100 straight days together. I'd never done anything 100 straight days. When I did a fitness challenge earlier this year and saw some good results, I thought, I got to take the nutrition to the next level. So I was leading a workshop down here, and I just said, I need to find a nutrition coach. 2 guys raised their hand. I've got one. I hired one who is kicking my ass, and I love it. I love it. I said, I'm not going to count macros. I'm not going to count calories. She goes, yes, you are. Yes, you are. That's how we're going to do it. And I'm doing it. And every time I get on a scale, I've dropped. I put on some shorts today that used to be tight on my ass, and they're kind of hanging off me a little bit.
Nice.
And
nice.
I'm a big believer, if you want to accomplish something of value, discipline alone is not going to get it to you, get it for you. You don't have to become an expert, go out and learn everything, become an expert, hire an expert, and it speeds the process up. However you want to 10X it, whatever you're going to exit. Get a coach, get accountability, get support, and get better information than you. Because, I tell you what, I can go out and watch 20 podcasts on how to get a good night's sleep, 20 podcasts on healthy eating, or 20 podcasts on fitness. And I'm going to get 100 different recommendations, some of which, some say eat all raw. Others say, oh, don't eat SOS, sugar, oil, or salt. Others say, oh, no, you need lots of salt. Others say, no, cut the carbs. Others say, just eat the meat. Others say, go vegan. Okay, get a coach. And if the coach's process works for you, go all in with it. Go all in with it.
I love it. A sleep coach, so tell me more about the sleep coach. I'm like keen on getting me one of those, because that's an area I got to dial in.
I don't actually have one yet, but I was wearing an Oura ring for a while. And then I was on a podcast with somebody who was wearing this Whoop band, and I asked them about it. So that's my sleep coach right now. I check it every morning. How much deep sleep did I get? What was my HRV during the night? Did I get to bed early enough? So right now, this is coaching me. And it's letting me know, it's giving me metrics to say, okay, if I wear the blue light glasses at night, it helps. I cut alcohol out several months ago. If I eat earlier, if I get to bed at the same time, like if I'm in bed by 9:30, I get more deep sleep. Doesn't matter how many hours I sleep. I actually have to get in bed early enough to get that deep sleep. And as you get older, you get less deep sleep, but we need it for our brain. I was watching one interview with Peter Attia, and they said, what's the number one thing for men to raise their testosterone? Guess what it was? Sleep. Good sleep. Number one thing. Because when we're in that deep sleep, that's when we're producing the testosterone. So I get all the information I can about my sleep. That coaches me of how I'm doing.
It's funny. A year and a bit ago, I interviewed Colonel David Grossman, who is a New York Times bestselling author who wrote the books On Killing and On Combat, the impact that killing has on members of the military and on law enforcement for the first book, and the impact of combat on soldiers. And he speaks to law enforcement and military organizations all over the world. And he was talking about sleep, and I committed to write a book with him, and I've gotten busy, and I need to get back to him to get that project back on track, because I bought a whole bunch of books on sleep, and it's something I'm struggling with and have been struggling with for a long time. So it's an area that I really want to take to the next level. Last year, I hired a fitness coach. He helped me drop 58 pounds in 6 months. Wow. Then I decided to do a bodybuilding competition with him. And what I'm realizing is I don't sleep enough, because part of the recovery to get your muscles to look a certain way is sleep. Sleep is critical to gaining muscle mass, dropping more fat.
Yep.
I was 227 last year. I went all the way down to 169. I went back up to 195 as part of the adding on muscle, but also some fat. And now we're going down. I'm down to 179 again. And I think I'm going to go down below 169 this time to get fully cut and ripped and all that jazz. But sleep is what I need to do. So when you said sleep coach, I said, damn, I need to hire one of those. Yeah. And I got to get back on writing the book. And,
that's how you do the deep dive. Whatever you're struggling with, go become the expert on it. Go become the expert and teach other people.
And you know what? I'd love for you to write the foreword to David and I's book. I think it'd be an honor to have someone like you talk about that. It'd be cool.
It'd be an honor to do it.
God bless you. Robert, thanks so much for coming on the show. Listener, Robert Glover's the real deal. If you want to find out more about him, what's the website you want me to send them to?
Let's give you two. drglover.com, drglover.com. Under construction, we're updating it. The other is integrationnation.net. That's my men's membership program, integrationnation.net.
integrationnation.net, drglover.com. We're going to make sure both of those are in the show notes. So listener, take advantage of this. If you enjoyed this, and if you have a friend who should have heard this, share the episode with them. We're going to have some clips from the episode. Share those with people as well. And give it a like, give it a good rating, give it a review. That's all we ask for, right? We put this episode out. We bring you great guests. And all we ask from you, that if you got value, you let us know that, because that's how we'll be able to grow this. The more likes, the more ratings, the more reviews we get, the more we'll be able to grow the episode. Robert, my friend, God bless you. It was an honor, and I'm looking forward to our next chat. Thank you so much.
Nikki, I love what you're doing in the world. Let me know next time you want to talk.
Absolutely. And that wraps up another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. To find out more about today's incredible guest, the one and only Dr. Robert Glover of No More Mr. Nice Guy fame, go to the show notes at thethoughtleaderrevolution.com or wherever you happen to listen to this episode, be it iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Audible, YouTube, Rumble, or what have you. Until next time, goodbye.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.